So we are welcoming in the presence of the Cosmic Light Collective, and we're doing this within the support of the radiant crystalline clear light in our universal subtle bodies and in the aqua galactic bubbles that surround our auric field. And we thank you for your guidance, your presence, your assistance, your collaboration, your support, and your faith in our evolutionary development and that of our planet. I listened to the topic that you wish to talk about this evening, and in sharing it with the community, we have many questions related to it. We also know that it has been a difficult time for the civilization, particularly in the United States, as we have been directly impacted by this topic quite powerfully. Is violence necessary to propel us, to propel humanity forward? And do we need drama to make change? Is it going to take a long time for the U.S. to enact police reform? How do you define violence, and what is its purpose on the earth? Are we reaching the peak of violence with 50 or more mass shootings just since the beginning of the year, so that we can see a better picture for the future of our nation and of our world? Is this gun violence, are these mass shootings a way to cleanse the civilization of those who do not choose peace? And in the same vein, is this violence a way out for those who don't want to be on Earth any longer? What is an act of violence to the soul? And are those involved in violence part of a soul contract that's purposeful on the earth? And how do we get beyond the place of victim and villain to redemption? Why did this topic come to us this evening, this Ascension community? And is there something specifically that we as a community need to do, or a role to play, regarding the dissolution of violence in our community and in our neighborhoods, in our country and in the world? So I recognize that these are very powerful and very heavy questions, and that the topic is a deeply concerning one, and I'm very much looking forward to this transmission and to all that you have to share with us about violence and about how we can respond in a soul-inspired, soul-empowered, soul-aware way to affirm life. So here we go. Dearest brothers and sisters on this evolutionary journey, collaborators, friends, together we are part of a life-affirming engine of change. A life-affirming engine of change that needs to be fueled with hope, with promise, with diligence, with patience, and with commitment to seeing the soul of another who refuses to accept the reality of its existence. We talk about violence today because you've been bathed in it through much of the month of April. And on another level, the violent assault of the pandemic has made violence ever more a sensitive subject than it has previously been. You can't separate violence from sensitivity. They are linked. A person who is angry is hurt. A person who is hurt, who has been injured, who has been humiliated, who has been defiled, has options about how to respond to the injury. A soul-inspired response will seek to de-escalate, to understand, to learn from, to forgive, to grow through. An egoistic response is to defend, to protect, to attack in return, and to continue blame, judgment, and separation as a means of self-protection. So the connection between sensitivity and violence cannot be minimized. However, when the soul is able to utilize the experience to bring redemption and transcendence to a realized physical manifested state, violence becomes a form of education. Not the kind of education that we really encourage, but it can be an educational tool. In the hands of the ego and the unenlightened, violence becomes a tool of control, of repression, it becomes a tool of terror, and it breeds on the sensitive nature of third-dimensional life that requires significant elements be in place to sustain life. So when your food, your water, your work, your family, your home, your transportation, and your access to energy is all threatened, that itself, the threat of that, is violent, because it sensitizes the individuals to the fear of survival, upon which the ego goes into overdrive. At that point, there is no vision beyond the hurt, the pain, the humiliation, the control, the oppression. The only thing that exists in that moment is the ego's desire to attack, to defeat the transgressor, and to prove triumphant in being able to access the resources required to feel that life has the means to continue its existence. Not the quality of that existence, just the existence. That is on one side of the equation. The other side of the equation responds from a soul-aware, soul-empowered understanding of what is unfolding. The pandemic itself was a violent attack upon the safety, the health, and well-being of this civilization. You can definitely describe it as a violent intruder. that cost the lives of millions, the well-being of millions and millions more, and the future safety of so many millions around the world. But in this instance, the pandemic, as a violent intruder, a virulent, violent intruder, is also a tool, an educative tool, to the reality of the soul versus the ego. When you ask about contracts, soul contracts in relationship to violence, we would say to you that violence, for violence sake, is never a contract. Just to haul off out of sensitivity and outrage is not a soul's contract. However, to be born on either side of a warring conflict and playing your role as a warrior, either on the winning or the losing side, that's a different experience of violence. Being incarnated either as a lawyer, as a police officer, as a soldier, where you are trained and paid to take another's life, is an issue of violence, not for violence sake, but as part of a larger understanding of cultural change, shift, unfoldment, of the large ego of humanity battling out whether the soul has a chance to be triumphant in a population willing to accept the price of peace, which is love. Violence knows fear. Peace knows love. The sensitive need love to counter the violence. The sensitive need love to counter the violence. When you consider all over the world the significant economic hardships that create the despair, the struggle, and the humiliations, by nature, you are brought into a conflict of understanding what, who, and why the human being is the way the human being is. When we discuss the ego's need to defend and attack, we're talking about the animalistic part of the mammalian brain that fights for survival. When we reach deep into the recesses of soul connection with soul awareness and soul empowerment, we recognize that life is eternal, that the body is one of many that you will wear, that the people that you have loved will continue to reincarnate with you on one level or another, and that the desire to bring soul embodiment to the planet will take a lot more than a few lives. But in order to access and engage the courage of soul-inspired living. You must know how to heal the hurts of the sensitive and empower the connection to the soul that provides the strength to choose peace over war, to choose love over fear, to choose sharing over hoarding. The entire civilization has been thrown into the need to choose. To choose peace, not because you just want things to be quiet, not to choose peace because you just don't want to be so afraid when you walk outside your door, not to choose peace because it's what most beauty queens say when they're asked what they hope for, peace in the world. The reason to choose peace is because you want the opportunity to discover who you truly are and what that will allow you to do in the world. That's the reason to choose peace. Violence does everything to rob you of that choice. Violence robs you of the choice to choose peace because it diminishes your ability to recognize your divinity in the face of mammalian responses to the desire to survive. The ego will survive, but only the soul knows how to thrive. Violence robs you of the opportunity to choose peace, to know what it is to thrive. We bring this message to you because as you fully embrace the definitions and the purposes of violence as we bring them to you, you are freed of that mammalian response to survive. And you are awakened to the potentials through which violence can be neutralized, through which violence can be de-escalated into opportunities for soul connection and thriving. The pandemic has an educational aspect to it for those who chose to move beyond the fear and embrace the purpose. To move beyond the fear, to embrace the purpose. To choose more and better, because as incarnated divinity, you can. Once an individual is fed, they're calm. But if they don't know where their next meal is coming from, it's not going to last. You set the individual up with a supply chain that they're part of, and they know the meals are coming regularly. They're freed up to explore what else to do with their time, and they're not fighting over their food. There'll be enough of it that they can share. The sensitive have a right to healing. The sensitive have a right to reconciliation. The sensitive have a right to knowing how to utilize what is within them to overcome a struggle, a difficulty, a challenge. The sensitive, when they are connected to the soul, no longer blame and judge. They become the aware who discover, empower, and act in truth, with kindness, through respect, and with understanding. In this nation, the respect is growing. The understanding has a possibility to actually impact large swatches of the population. There is hope. There is promise. The ability to educate and to heal is bigger than it has been in quite a while. Because the pandemic has allowed larger swatches of the citizenry to move beyond their slumber, to take notice, to pay attention, to slow down, and to recognize the suffering of their neighbors. The sensitive suffer, the ignorant inflict suffering. The sensitive suffer, and the ignorant inflict suffering. No educated, truly soul-educated individual would inflict suffering. But an ignorant, third-dimensional human being doesn't even think about it. It's just part of the way things have been done. Violence is not just an act. It is a belief, it is a thought, it is most definitely a memory. And it is filled with profound feeling. That leaves the body vulnerable to so many disorienting and demeaning experiences. War, the ravages of war in Syria, throughout the African continent, the ravages of war worldwide over have left great scars, not which the least of is 2 atomic bombs and its impact on the planet itself and all of the testing that was done within the planetary body without any recognition of what that created for the earth itself. Violence has been an abused tool at the hand of the ego. But the soul does not respond to its threats or react to its ignorance. The soul stands firm in its ability to respect life and to honor the boundaries that allow for those who choose healing, reconciliation, and redemption to achieve those goals. You can't separate violence from sensitivity, and you can't separate violence from protection. When you look to others to protect you, as you do in your military, in your police forces, when you look to those particular populations to take the brunt of the violent attacks so that you may feel safe and secure in your homes, you also relinquish part of your power to those who determine what those structures look like and how they function. As your society chooses to awaken to its soul potential, the ability to hand over that power won't come so easily, because the power is shared in a soul community. It's not just handed over. As each one of you undertake the process of understanding how to protect your own auric field, how to offer that protection to others who ask for it from you, as you awaken to your empowerment to navigate through your life with the awareness that you are safe in your soul, regardless of the virus, regardless of your neighbor who owns a gun, regardless of the hunting grounds that you may be close to, regardless of the military bases in your backyards, or the missile silos not far from where a family member lives. The essence of protection is trusting that your soul has your life force safe and secure, regardless of the environment you find yourself in. And for whatever reason you find yourself in a particular environment, your soul can still find a way to get you through it. If you listen, if you collaborate. There are soul contracts of individuals who perpetuated great violence on others, and so they reincarnate into dangerous situations, whether it be a country undergoing a genocide, or whether it be in a poverty-stricken ghetto with high crime rates, or whether it be in an abusive family. But the issues around karma aren't tit for tat any longer. If you came in to redeem yourself for a past life transgression, then you have the opportunity in this life not to repeat the process, but to redeem yourself by making choices that move in the direction of the soul, that move in the direction of internal protection and peace, that move in the direction of honoring life rather than defiling it. It is not easy for a human being to take another life. And in soul-aware, soul-empowered living, it's about supporting the experience of another's right to live life. And that is our job. To support the sensitive to experience healing, to choose reconciliation, to choose transcendence. You cannot bring back that which was lost, but you can choose to create something better than the past. The violent are imprisoned. The peaceful are free. The pandemic, for as much as you believe that it has imprisoned you in your homes, has actually freed you to make changes you never would have without a global reset. Virulent violence created the reset. It was a means to educate an entire civilization, and a way to do it with the least loss of life, not the most. Please hear that. With the least loss of life, not the most. What you see occurring in the eruptions and the outbursts in the United States is the ego panicking in the need to oppress and control at the cost of one's own existence. It is a purely egoistic epidemic of loss of self. A loss of one's self-respect, self-confidence, capacity to heal, ability to think, opportunity to understand. The grudges, the wounds, the oppression, the affliction, the imprisonments, They create the sensitivities that need to be collectively addressed by the soul-aware and soul-inspired courageous who question why it's done this way. How does it need to change? And what are the steps and who are involved to make those changes realized realities of possible peace? So, we come to you as we come every week with the recognition that collaboratively we can begin to address those sensitivities, to create invitations to soul awareness that make healing a real possibility, that we offer a perspective and awareness that chooses not to vilify, but to comprehend, and to seek collective responses to significant problems around which violence will erupt if love doesn't take a stand. Peace is the choice that the soul makes. Violence is the only choice that the ego knows. The soul aware and the soul inspired offer a choice beyond the fear, pain, and sensitivity of the ego. Some will not be able to move past the ego's hold, and therefore of their own choosing will self-destruct as you are watching before your eyes. But there are many more who will say yes to the help, who will say yes to the understanding, who will say yes to wanting to feel safe inside themselves, regardless of what is happening around them. And if we can teach our children, we can empower them to embrace safety from the inside out, how different will the future be? How soul-inspired and aware will our communities become? Because we won't be denying our responsibility to caring for each other by asking others to keep us safe. We have to do it together. This is one of many conversations we will have on topics related to violence. We've come to work with you, to introduce some new concepts, to consider options, and to recognize that as a team, taking responsibility for our own safety in the way that we live and work within our environments, that we can empower others to understand what protection really requires, and how when inside you know a safety that cannot be threatened by your external world, somehow courage rises up when you least expect it, and the miraculous unfolds. We are here to create the miraculous and to allow it to surprise and delight you by intimately connecting you with all that you really are. Thank you for listening to us, for working with us, for considering our message this evening, and for being those expressions of peace that can be viscerally and literally seen as you courageously stand up for the sanctity of life wherever and however you engage with it. Feel now a deep wave of sanctified peace moving through the crystalline clear light into your galactic bubble, into your soul's auric field. Feel this deep peace penetrating your beliefs, thoughts, feelings, memories, and physical cells. Feel the peace link into the clear light in the soul's beam, and feel it descending into each of the chakras to all of the systems of the body. Feel the peace moving through every atomic and subatomic particle of your cells. As it occurs for you individually, feel this wave of peace moving through every culture in every nation on the earth. Into every man, woman, and child. Into the embryos coming into existence. And feel this wave of peace as a hope and a promise of what a soul-embodied civilization will be capable of doing in transcending violence. Gently now, feel the wave complete its journey and the clear light move out of your universal subtle body and back into the universe. Feel the wave move into the chakras of the planetary body as the planet absorbs this wave, and the crystalline light moves back to the center of the universe. All of the galactic support teams remain in place. And breathe in peace. And breathe out peace. Until all that you feel is peace. And in peace shall we serve, and in peace shall we thrive, and in peace we leave you until we reconvene next week. And the blessings of peace do flow.